The federal government says it is monitoring the situation in the Middle East and how it will impact on the Nigerian economy. We had an exclusive conversation with the Ministerial of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun. And today, the Nigerian Senate has confirmed Mr. Taiwo Oye. We had an exclusive conversation with the Ministerial of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun. And today, the Nigerian Senate has confirmed Mr. Taiwo Oyedele as the Minister of State for Finance. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Shoki Malay right here in Abuja. The crisis within the People's Democratic Party is still getting some attention from the leaders, where the chairman, board of trustees of the party, led by the Aminu Turki group, is asking leaders and members of the party to jettison all personal and group interests and come together as one family in the overall interest of the party. Senator Adolphus Wabara stated this during the expanded emergency meeting of the Board of Trustees of the party held in Abuja. The BOT disagrees with the judgment of the Court of Appeal, which pronounced an invalidation of the November 15th and 16th National Convention that produced the Kabiru Tanimu Turki-led National Working Committee of the party. Take a listen to Senator Adolphus Wabara.
The BOT disagrees with the judgment of the Court of Appeal, which pronounced an invalidation of the November 15th to 16th, 2025 National Convention that produced the Kabiru Tanimu Turaki-led National Working Committee of our party. The BOT is awaiting the advice of our lawyers on the way forward in this regard.
All right, so much to talk about. Let's tell you about the Senate sitting today, where Mr. Taiwo Oyedele has faced the Senate screening today to be confirmed as a Minister of State for Finance. Mr. Oyedele, up until his nomination as Minister of State, serving as the chair of the Special Presidential Committee, which got the brief to reform the Nigerian tax system. Mr. Oyedele faced the scrutiny of the Senate alongside other political nominees today. Afterwards, the Senate confirmed his appointment as the Minister of State for Finance. Today, the federal government has come out to say all is looking well. As they say, they're monitoring the situation in the Middle East. Over the past few weeks now, we've seen tension as Israel and the United States are pouncing on Iran, and several missiles have been launched. Attacks have come in different directions, killing so many people and hundreds of people more injured in what has become a major Middle East tension. Economically speaking, this impacts global trade, import and export, especially ships and commodities that pass through the Straits of Hormuz. And this is causing a global attention. And Nigeria says it is monitoring it and ensuring that the impact on the Nigerian economy is limited. However, Nigeria, which has an oil and gas mainstay of its economy, is hoping that the impact of the tension and the crisis wouldn't go beyond escalation and at least be curtailed within the next few days so that the tension will reduce and the impact on inflation and price of commodities will be curtailed. Well, we've seen increasing hike in the price of petrol from Nigeria major petrol refiner, Dangote Refinery, which increased the price from about over 900 to over 1,200 recently, as also a few hours ago it announced a decrease in the price to about 1,075 naira. The federal government says it is monitoring the situation and hoping that the tension does not really have a major impact on the Nigerian economy. We had a sit down with the Minister of Finance and the Coordinator Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun. That exclusive interview is right for you tonight. But before we allow you to listen to Mr. Wale Edun, we're going to break, and when we come back, you get a first shot at an exclusive conversation with Mr. Wale Edun. Everyone, let's brace up for the conversation with the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun. I began by asking him about the appointment of Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, who is going to be his partner in the ministry as a Minister of State for Finance. And this is how we began the conversation.
Well, it's a decision of His Excellency, Mr. President, that we should have Dr. Taiwo Oyedele as our Honorable Minister of State for Finance. We look forward to welcoming him. We look forward to working with him. We are, I think, very well aware of his capacity, of his energy, and of his commitment to this government, looking at the service that he has rendered over the last couple of years. So, welcome on board. We wish him every success with the ongoing process of screening by the Senate. And as soon as he's screened and sworn in, he'll roll up his sleeves and join us.
There's a lot of work to be done.
Yes.
What kind of value do you think Taiwo could bring to the ministry?
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen exactly how we split up the roles between us, but I'm sure he will do well. And we look forward to welcoming him. I'm sure he will do well.
What are the immediate challenges? I mean, you are the senior minister, that's how it's being perceived, the substantive ministry, the Minister of State. You are seen as the coordinating minister of the economy. What are the immediate challenges that you think that Mr. Taiwo should be prepared for, especially because of his experience as a tax advisor and also headed the presidential committee on tax reforms?
Thank you. I think we need to grow the economy. In order to grow the economy, we need funding. On the government side, yes, there is a role for the government to play, critical infrastructure funding, the so-called pillars for investment. And in order to do that, we need to boost revenue. So we really need to use automation, digitization, even AI and other technology to increase government revenue. And he's clearly an expert in the tax and the fiscal area. That's his training, that's his background. And that's his most recent task that government has given him. So that's on the one hand. But the key to having removed major distortions, which President Tinubu has bravely and courageously done, remove the major distortions, put in place market pricing of foreign exchange, market pricing of petroleum products, stabilize the economy, brought down inflation, as you know, from 34% to 15%, and obviously built up reserves and so forth. The next step, and it must come quickly and at scale, is to have investment that increases productivity, grows the economy, creates jobs, and gives people income that reduces poverty. And I must emphasize that the whole point of the President Tinubu renewed hope agenda and action plan is to reduce poverty in the land. Nothing short of that.
Would you say that has been done?
That is a work in progress that is committed to. If you look at the statistics now, they are not what we want them to be. We are not where we want to be. But obviously, part of that process of protecting the citizens, their welfare, reducing poverty, making life affordable for them, has become that there's a sharper edge on it now with the geopolitics that we are seeing at present in the world. And we have immediately, under the President's direction, convened the economic management team, which, as you know, includes key spending ministries and others, as well as Central Bank of Nigeria, the NSA's office. We have immediately convened to look at the current situation and see how best we can protect the gains that this economy has achieved in the last couple of years.
Yeah. I'm going to go into the Middle East crisis, which is the reason why we are having this conversation, because it's a big deal.
Yes.
Where that region sneezes, it affects us, because if you look at the biggest producers or deposits of oil and gas in the world, you find out of the 10, you find almost 6 of them within that corridor. You talk about Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar.
For gas.
They are there. And when the Strait of Hormuz is also impacted, it's going to affect trade and commerce across the globe. But before we go there, Honorable Minister, it will be important for you to be able to let Nigerians know the reduction of poverty that this president and this government says he wants to do. And those who are still in that poverty, 3 years down the line now, be asking, when are we going to be lifted? They are still down in the well of poverty. What is going on? What is their hope?
I think we're on the verge of major growth, which is what will reduce poverty. As it is now, when you look at the figures, we have now gone to a rate of 4% per annum growth. Twice in this year, 2 quarters, we are above 4% growth. We need to push that up. The target set by Mr. President in the immediate term is 7%. Why 7%? That 7% will be roughly double population growth. And it's when you get growth of that size that you know you are lifting people out of poverty. We do have a social protection program which is currently running. It's served about 10 million households, that's about 50 million Nigerians with direct payments, 3 sets of direct payments. And what I will say about that is that it is social protection, a social safety net, and it is a protection and even it's a weapon against poverty, to the extent that at any given time you can identify, when you can biometrically and uniquely identify an individual, and then you can make funding available to them in a way which you can account for, which you can reconcile, and which you can record through a digital payment process. You have the beginnings of being able to help the citizens in a way which most societies reckon they should be helped, which is the poorest and the most vulnerable in particular. And that's what happened, for instance, during COVID. And no matter how small these amounts are, a direct payment like that allows that individual to decide, or that household to decide, how to spend it. So these are the building blocks and tools that also help you attack poverty directly in a way which most people would argue is the right thing to do, despite the fact that overall you want to lift people by lifting the economy.
The question anyone will ask is, Minister, your macroeconomic indices are looking good. They are growing. And rebasing of some of these indices also has pushed the numbers in the positive direction. But the reality is the microeconomic indices and the impact on the average person and their plight have not really changed. And there are lots of them who are complaining and say, yes, you're talking about these good numbers, but the monies in our pocket and the food on our table are still being impacted largely. We cannot feed, we cannot transport the way we want. Poverty is being felt. What do you tell those kind of people when you say the renewed agenda is working? They, for themselves, they think it's hopelessness.
I would say that we all know that food prices are down. We all know that with the CNG initiative, fuel prices, the price of fueling people's cars is down. We all know that students now have help with funding their fees and funding their living costs. We all know that through the credit call, items that were previously unaffordable are now affordable. They can be broken down into payments that people can afford. We all also know that, or I will have you know that, in addition to that, there is focus on bringing on what is called the Renewed Hope World Development Program. And that is an attempt to push down to the grassroots help and assistance, financing and know-how, so that at the world level, in all the 8,809 wards, under the leadership of the Minister for Budget and Economic Planning and his team, there is a commitment to provide, as I say, funding and other assistance so that productivity can increase at that level. The women who have a recipe for Osun that people believe in across West Africa, maybe we help them with their packaging that allows them not just to produce and sell a good in Nigeria, but across West Africa because of that extra quality that you have brought to bear. So that is the commitment to bring down to the world level.
But they say they are not feeling it. What do you tell them? When would they feel it? When will that hope come? Because that is a big promise that have been made to them.
I think for all of us, it's the sooner the better. And these programs are being rolled out currently. And in addition, it has been identified, 90% of this economy is the private sector, but about 85% of that is micro, small, and medium-scale industries. And so that is where we are focusing now on providing financing. So we're working on one or two programs, in particular with development partners, that will provide access to affordable finance at these micro and small and medium scale level. And we must remember, and I know you want to go later to the issue of geopolitics, but we must remember that it is settled now that domestic production must come to the fore. It's the president's commitment to support domestic producers and to not only make them competitive, which he has done with the macroeconomic environment we have, with the competitive exchange rate we have, not only make them competitive cost-wise so that they can make profits, but also make them export competitive. As you know, the National Single Window Project is just about to be launched, and that's to help with export competitiveness, so that in Nigeria of today, the opportunities are tremendous for the domestic market. They're tremendous for the ECOWAS market of 320 or so million. And of course, there are tremendous opportunities for the African continental market of about 1.4 billion people. That is the stage that Nigerians have, the level playing field and the opportunity they have, not just for Nigerians in Nigeria, for Nigerians in diaspora, and of course for foreign investors.
So the bigger picture here, sir, is that those who were somewhere holding by the trouser to say, you are Mr. President's shining star in terms of his major agenda is to make the lives of Nigerians better. And he has promised to say the three top policy of Mr. President our economic policy that change the lives of Nigerians. But he has also said, I asked for the job, owed me to account, I will deliver. And he also said, look, some of the things that you are saying now, the gains are coming. It's the gains Nigerians are looking forward to, because the government has said the economic reforms are necessary to stabilize the economy. In the long term, we are going to feel it. Yet, there are those who say that the same reforms have pushed millions deeper into poverty. When do you think we can start feeling those gains? It's 3 years down the line, Mr. Edun.
As I will always say, Sheung, I know you want to pin me to a month, you want me to pin me to a week, and you even want to pin me to an hour, but it's as soon as possible. I mean, we are on that road. Whatever you say, you are saying it. Inflation means a cheaper cost of living. Lower fuel prices mean a cheaper cost of living. So it's not enough, but we are on the right track.
Are you under pressure to deliver?
Certainly. It's like, what shall we use? Any member of a team, any member, our beloved Manchester United, every member of the team, when they go out, they're under pressure.
To be truthful,
and that's
Edun.
accepted.
Yeah. Your profile and your reputation preceded you before taking this job. Did you ever think that these things were this difficult? The economy was in dire straits?
No, Mr. President will tell you. His Excellency, Mr. President will say, you inherit the assets and liabilities of your predecessor. It's what we met that we are dealing with, and that so far we have managed to get under control, turn around. What we met is now history. It is what
it was a disaster of an economy that you met, isn't it?
Your words. What I would say is that, well, the figures are there.
And you are an economist.
Let me give you an example.
You know well that things were terrible when you got
Well, the result of that, let me give you just one example. We have to cope with, in Naira terms, when we translate it, 122 billion Naira in public debt. But of that figure, 30 trillion was a regularization where the ways and means, the printing of money was not counted as part of the public debt. We brought it in to the public debt, which is the right and the transparent thing to do. That is within the rule of law. In addition, when, as was necessary in the monetary policy of the day, which was independently and autonomously set by central bank, you had a movement in the exchange rate, as well as the fact that, of course, you had a movement in the price of petroleum. So when you add the adjustments that were made to the debt as a result of the exchange rate movement, you had the exchange rate movement, and that now pushed up another, in Naira terms, another 47 billion Naira. So you had 50 plus 30, you had 80 billion Naira out of 152 billion Naira, purely adjustments. So that's a new burden that we now have to service. So those are the kinds of things that we met, but they are the past. And I will emphasize that eyes are on the future. We are coping with a huge debt service burden which was inherited.
Would you say we are out of the woods yet?
We're on our way out of the woods. As the Mr. President says, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel as long as we stay the course. And importantly, and maybe you turn to that now, I'm not sure. You are the interviewer, I'm just the interviewee. Yeah. But the global shocks are a factor. And it is the resilience against global shocks that you can keep going when things change drastically at the international level. That resilience is what we are trying to build in the economy. And that's what we have built so far. Because of all the things that have happened to date, Ukraine has continued beyond what people expected. And of course, now we have this new flare-up in the Middle East. And before that, we had Gaza. And through all these global events and shocks, the Nigerian economy has managed to stay on course, exchange rate stable, reserves building up, inflation coming down, growth accelerating, I would say. And so it is that trajectory we are now concerned to protect. Because now we have another issue in front of the world, which is unfolding at a rapid rate. It's volatile, it's uncertain, and we are looking to make sure we react appropriately.
And I'll take you to the Middle East, and the tension is palpable. The big deal here is that our focus on our dependency on the oil and gas economy is huge and is going to be a lot of impact. And we've seen how the major oil producer and refiner in Nigeria, Dangote, has moved oil prices, petrol prices about 4 times just in about a week or less than 2 weeks. And that means that whatever is happening in the Middle East, we cannot look away and say it doesn't concern us because it's kilometers away from us. The global economy is one and is impacting us. Are you worried as an economist managing the Nigerian economy about what is happening in the Middle East?
I think we all are. I think all sides are. Whether you want to call them perpetrators or you want to call them victims or the people reacting, everybody must be concerned about the geopolitics that is going on now, simply because even from a humanitarian point of view, it's disastrous, it's totally something that nobody would wish to happen, and we want it to end as possible. Everybody wants peace. But you mentioned local refiners, because there's the Alhaji Dangote, the Dangote refinery and Petrochem is the biggest, but there are other refiners and those coming on stream, and we make policy for the industry, not for individuals. But having said that, you talk about the pricing, and it's interesting that you are talking about private sector operators moving their prices. That's the market price. That is what has been instilled by Mr. President that was missing for so long, market pricing of petroleum products. And it's not a one-way street. Dangote reduced their price from, I think, around 1,200 to now just over 1,000, 1,050. Yeah. And that's the dynamics of the market. But I think we should be thankful at this time for the capacity we have in Nigeria to refine crude into petrochemicals and petroleum products. America is just now rushing to open another refinery. Pakistan, Thailand, in the absence of that capacity, they're almost closing down their economies and societies, closing down schools, sending people home. So it is very, very important to note that at this time, the resilience that the Nigerian economy has is coming largely from the fact that we do have that investment by the private sector, by Alhaji Aliko Dangote, in refining. And we need, at this time, to support our refiners, just as others are supporting them, to keep petroleum products flowing. Yeah. That's a challenge in front of us in the immediate term, to keep the wheels turning, so to speak.
Up next, asking Mr. Wale Edun, in fact, more critical question as to how the Middle East tension could impact on oil prices, food prices, and what this government is doing about it. Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's continue our conversation with the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun. The federal government is not moved to help the market price, are you? Because you know the impact. Because I'm moved to say, would there be a direct impact? But that's an obvious answer, isn't it? Because prices of the National Economic Management Team had come out to say there will be a direct impact on the price of petroleum product, on price of fertilizers, and I could add a few things that will be impacted. Inflation will be impacted, transport costs will be impacted, and that means a lot. You are trying to manage the inflation figures. This is going to be a big deal. How much of a trouble and worry is this for you?
It is something that we have to deal with, and one of the ways in which Mr. President immediately announced was 100,000 extra CNG conversion kits to enable vehicles to convert to CNG fuel, which is maybe 25–30% the cost of PMS. And that is a way you decisively and specifically move to bring down an important cost, because as you know, and you mentioned, transport costs permeate so many other areas. So we will be looking for initiatives like that. We will be looking for measures that we can immediately implement other than other than interfering with an orderly market price
So the
mechanism.
federal government is not thinking and not tempted to touch or
I think
to help regulate or balance the price of the commodity.
I think where there's market failure is where the regulator steps in. But in terms of balancing the price, what we are looking to do is to manage the current, I would say, disruption. And we don't know how permanent, how temporary it will be. But in the meantime, rather than now reverting back and taking a backward step, I think we'll look at every other measure that we can that can help the cost of living of Nigerians without resorting to non-market.
So it will be a last resort if things are getting awkward.
I think normally, given the policies and the philosophy of this government, it would always have to be a last resort. I even think in all these other countries, it's a last resort. I mean, it's a last resort to close down the schools in Pakistan.
So the federal government is not tempted to do it?
At the moment, the measures that we have now is that what we are taking, and it's something that is being looked at every day. And I think ideas will come up. Suggestions will come up, and luckily, we do have the domestic capacity. And we must remember that the domestic capacity for refining crude into petrochemical products and into petroleum products is adequate for the market. Our demand is about 50 million liters per day, and the refiners say that they can meet that demand. So we are in a relatively strong position if we can make that, make that a reality on a consistent basis. So we are not as worse off as some of these other people. So we must say, thank God for our refining capacity in Nigeria.
Thank God for Dangote, for
well, there you said it.
And I'd like to ask you, because energy security is a big deal, is a major deal, not only for physical security or the tangible security, but also economic security. It's important for Nigerians to know, do we have anything shored up in terms of, in case, because scarcity comes with some of these crises that you see. Panic buying comes with it, and that it affects prices and it affects availability. Are we at a risk of availability or scarcity problem?
I think we must say that because we are not sure what will happen in the likes of the Straits of Hormuz, we're not sure how much disruption there will be
or how long
into the supply chain, or how long it lasts. It's very difficult to answer. But what I will say is that we can see around the world strategic reserves coming out. The International Energy Association is releasing, the European countries are releasing stocks. In our own case, as we say, we have the ability to produce on a daily basis. But in addition to that, under the Petroleum Industry Act, we do have the requirement that we hold strategic reserves. And while we are on the way to completing that stipulation of the law, we do have in place a strategic reserve of sorts. So
that can keep us for at least some time.
I won't say for how long.
Yeah, but at least
yes,
we have a bit shored up.
But we must remember, without panicking ourselves, we must remember that people are running out. They are coming within hours of having no more fuel, days of no more fuel. And so it is a situation which has to be closely watched, and to dimension it fully would be to predict what will happen in this war, and nobody knows.
And, Donald Trump and the government in the United States, that they said they're fighting this war, and they are making it more decisive, and Iran is not backing down. There are mines being set for ships in the Strait of Hormuz. So things are getting more intense. But Minister, the federal government says it is monitoring the escalating Middle East tensions because of possible disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz and rising crude prices. But if oil prices, Minister, surge globally, Nigeria also imports refined oil fuel. So realistically, will Nigerians see relief from higher oil prices, or will it simply mean even more expensive petrol, diesel, and cooking gas at home?
I would even say that the transmission channels, yes, are that of this particular conflict and the effect on the oil price. One, we benefit fiscally from selling at a higher price. But then the costs are also higher. The industry costs are higher because, of course, on the input side, on the production cost side, the various items also have gone up in cost. And particularly, the supply disruption that we have means that freight, for example, transportation costs, they too are higher. So you have to see whether the gains are more than the losses. And also, we have to remember that in terms of the financial flows, we are integrated into the world financial system, world trade system, like other countries. And that means that we feel the effects of movements. And one of the likely movements is, especially if there's an inflationary spike for any given length of time, we know that the lever and the tool and the weapon that the monetary authorities use is higher interest rates. And of course, that will mean higher costs all around. So we don't know. And clearly, we have the incentive to pump as much oil as possible at this period of high prices. But we don't know where things will actually balance, because we have gains on one side and then we have costs on the other side. And when it comes to inflation, the world, it's a settled matter. If inflation raises its head, the world will rise as one to fight it, because it hurts the common man and the most vulnerable in society more than anybody else. And so it is a scourge that you have to get rid of in order to have a fair, equitable, and even thriving society and economy.
It's a mixed emotions, a mixed creel of some of one would say opportunity to balance the forces, because historically Nigeria benefits from higher crude prices, but despite periods of higher oil revenue, Nigerians still face rising living costs. What guarantee can you give as a government that any oil windfall from global crisis that we're seeing will actually translate into lower inflation or social relief, rather than just plugging fiscal deficits?
I think high oil prices mean higher revenue for the federation, the government, federal government, and the states. When you put that together with the current stability that is being enjoyed, when you put that together with the falling inflation trajectory, it means that the government is in an even stronger position, help in the agricultural sector, help in the infrastructure sector, and to help in the social sector in a way that makes life more affordable for Nigerians. A windfall will make the government stronger to do more of what it is doing now, which I think when we all agree, when we look at the metrics, the policies, the economic policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu are working. We just need to ramp up everything that is being done, including attracting investment. And I must say that when we say that the president has changed the society, has changed the economy, one example is this. For decades upon decades, the incentive, if you earned Naira, was to change it to foreign exchange and wait for it to depreciate so you have more Naira, so you can cope with the spike in cost of living in Naira terms. If in November 2024 you bought at 1900, you're now selling at 1400. What that shows is that the Naira is now worth holding, and it shows that investment that earns you Naira is worth undertaking. And that is an opportunity for huge gains and huge activity for young Nigerians starting out, for domestic investors generally, as well as for foreign investors. And in addition, let me add that savings, it now encourages savings across the board. So when you say to me, how will savings occur at the grassroots? Well, if you have a stock exchange quoted company that is earning good dividends, and that our financial markets, which are thriving, as we know at the moment, even in dollar terms, our financial markets are able to break down that investment so that you can take your quote-unquote widow's mite and put it there, and every 3 months or every 6 months, you earn a dividend. Then even at the lowest levels, people will be encouraged to save. Once people are encouraged to save, there will be funding for investment. And you only have to look at the Nigerian market, the size of the Nigerian market for consumer products, for all sorts of goods, for leisure goods, for food items. And you can see a huge opportunity which people could not take before because the economy was unpredictable and unstable. So I am making a pitch that now is the time, not just for foreign investors to come and make money in Nigeria, it's time for Nigerians to make good returns in Nigeria. The opportunity is there, and more and more, every day, what is required is being done to facilitate ease of investment, level playing field, opportunity for all Nigerians.
Minister, I'd like you to be able to tell Nigerians tonight if there is any guarantee that this government can give to them in the escalation of the crises and the tension in the Middle East. One thing they want to be sure, yes, the missiles are not touching on our grounds, but what is even worse off is the effect of those missiles and the guns that are being shot in the Middle East. The economic effect that we could feel and the impact that we could feel here. Since the federal government and your team said you are monitoring closely, what assurances can you give to them tonight that Nigerians will not suffer? Food prices will not go up. Nigerians will then not be plunged into further poverty, and those who are already unable to feed their children and their families will not also suffer more.
That is exactly our objective, to protect the current gains. And the current gains include lowered food prices, lowered inflation generally.
How do you guarantee that?
There is no guarantees. There are no guarantees, but what we can guarantee is that that is what we are focused on, that's what we are working towards, and that's what we have achieved to date. That's what we are achieving to date.
In this period, Minister, yes. What are you doing differently? What kind of genius are you bringing to the table to ensure that, yes, Middle East is impacted, is a mainstream of our economy, but then Nigerians, be rest assured, Mr. President, although it's a drop in the ocean, or the CNG kits, just a few people will feel it, but the major impact is the food on the table. The people now will not be plunged into poverty. Can you give that guarantee or assurances, Minister?
Well, the assurance is that just as inflation and food prices have come down, our intention is to keep them there, is to keep food affordable, working with the farmers, looking at what the farmers require, not just for a one-time drop in price, but a steady supply of adequate and an adequate supply of food that keeps the price affordable. We have achieved it to date. We are confident that what we have done is the right thing to date, and we'll continue to look for the right thing to do on a proactive basis.
Are you thinking of bringing more seed, more grains to the country to shore up what we have, to balance food prices? Is that an immediate thinking?
I think at the economic management team meeting that we had yesterday, the Minister for Agriculture did lay out the situation as far as food production is concerned, and there are one or two initiatives that we are looking at in order to make sure that we do achieve adequate food production domestically before looking at any other thing. in terms of imports. But let me just also say, what we are seeing around the world today is emphasizing and reinforcing what had already started, which is a move to domestic production, to onshoring. We have a huge domestic market in Nigeria. We need to make sure that we cater adequately for investors in domestic production. That's the security and safety we're enjoying today, that it is because we have market pricing of petroleum products, that we have petroleum products in Nigeria, that we have refining of crude, adding of value in Nigeria. Is because we have the right incentives and right regulatory framework in place. It may not be perfect, but it's enough to do what it has done at this time, which is to keep the shall I call it, say, the pumps, keep the pumps flowing, which other countries at this time do not have.
Nigeria recorded inflation above 30% in 2024. After the subsidy removal, petrol prices surged by as much as 300%, from about 617 naira per litre to over 1,000 naira. It triggered a lot of things. The spike in transportation and food prices. My question to you, Honorable Minister, is that did the government underestimate the shock these policies of years would have cost the purchasing power of ordinary Nigerians?
Well, as you say, it's an estimation, because it was clear that prices were being artificially and repressed in a way that was unsustainable. The administrative allocation of foreign exchange at below market rates was not sustainable. The selling of petroleum products at a price that did not reflect the border price, the international price, which meant that we were just donating maybe 30% or more of the petroleum products that we were using hard-earned foreign exchange to buy. We were donating it across the border, because at the border, the price was double what it was at our own pumps. Those were unsustainable situations. Now that we have market pricing, it is much easier. We don't need to have those huge adjustments. We anticipated that there would be those adjustments, but we knew or anticipated that as domestic production came into being, as the incentive for local production increased, there would be more goods available and inflation would come down. And of course, an independent and autonomous central bank also kept things tight. They returned to what we call orthodox monetary policy. So between the supply side, making it attractive for producers, as well as squeezing out the excess demand in the economy as a result of monetary laxity, we managed to turn the tables. And we must commend and we must note that reducing inflation from 34% to 15%, we're not there yet. We must, and I know the target is to go below 10%. We're not there yet, but it's a tremendous achievement in the right direction, and it shows the capacity, the capability, and what can be done under the economic reform agenda, and indeed leadership and political will of Mr. President.
Well, that's the much we can take tonight in that conversation with the Minister of Finance. But there is a political angle and question to the Finance Minister, which is not part of what you were saying, but I will show you tomorrow. Well, I did ask him whether there is a danger in the economic policy to the possible re-election of President Bola Tinubu, and when really Nigerians should be expecting in the next few weeks, if they go to the polls, whether or not this economic policy is not going to endanger the chances at the poll. Those are critical questions